Evaluation. We have Mike, the evaluator extreme.
Mike, it's been so long.
Well, Reed, if only your speech had involved a baby, we'd have a hat trick here. Diana, I really felt as if I was there in the cemetery and in the kitchen of Emily's mother. You did such a great job of drawing me in as an audience member and playing all those different characters. During the introduction, I found myself thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to get lost with all of that going on. But you did such a great job of adapting this play and using your body and your voice and your gestures that I certainly didn't get lost. At all times, I knew what character you were and to whom you were speaking or interacting with. I'm going to talk about three things and then open it up, of course, to round robin. One is your eye contact. Two is the emotion that you displayed. And three, I think most important, as I've already mentioned, your differentiation of the different characters. Now, for those of you that didn't read the complete description in the manual, Diana was not supposed to, in all cases, make eye contact with the audience. When she was the narrator, she was supposed to. But when she was a character in the play, she was supposed to be oblivious to the audience and only make eye contact with the other characters. Is that correct?
Right.
And I thought you did a very good job of that. One thing I noticed, I don't know if you had training in this, or perhaps you got it from someone like Darren LaCroix, but I saw you look at your paper and then look at either the audience or the other character and then speak your line, as opposed to speaking your line into your paper. So great technique for those of you who may have an opportunity to do a reading, have to read a speech or a play in the future. That I recommend that technique. And I think that eye contact, even if it's not made with the audience, when it's made with another character, really helps us identify, like, oh, Emily's talking to her mother now. Oh, now Emily's talking to someone else. So great job on that. And I think you even reformatted the text to aid you in doing that. Is that correct?
I had to cut out so much, so I ended up retyping.
But one thing I found helpful is chopping up for each individual, one phrase per line. You're going to read, look, speak. So good job on that. Your emotion. Goodbye, Grover's Corners. And I really felt genuine when you said that. And there's a number of other cases as well. And you made good use of pauses to convey emotion too. But Mother Gibbs, I can go back, I feel it. Again, you had that big pause before then to really emphasize, which really was the central point in the whole play. That this going, could you or could you not, or should not go back. And finally, your differentiation of the characters, so important when you're playing all of these different characters. So you had the gravelly voice of the Undertaker, and the kind of bubbly voice of Emily, and the different women who were dead all had a different voice, and you didn't have to switch chairs or graves. You kind of leaned, and at least as an audience member, I got it. Okay, you're this dead person, that dead person, and you saved us a lot of time instead of scooting back and forth. So, I mean, great job on that. So, good and appropriate eye contact, effective emotions, and great character differentiation. Round robin, who would like to participate? Mike.
I found there were too many characters for me to follow. And, I mean, I could definitely tell who the narrator was, and the guy over here with a deep voice was a character I could understand, and the girl in the middle. But I wasn't sure who they were talking to. I wasn't sure who was the ghosts and what the contexts were. And I was thinking that maybe like if the chairs had the names and it was a ghost, or maybe had a sign that said kitchen or a sign that said something, so that I could actually focus on what you were saying and listening to you, as opposed to, because I wasn't sure who was who. It was just too many for me. But I could definitely hear the different voices. I could definitely hear the different motions. I could tell you were a different character. I just wasn't sure which character you were, and it was hard for me to follow along.
Dana.
Two things. One, I would ask that maybe you could have the chairs up there prior to the introduction. That would just be my little word of improvement, if that's possible. And the other thing is, conversely, I got every single character. I knew who was who, and I loved Mrs. Gibbs' friend.
Mrs. Soames.
I just loved her voice. She was hysterical. Yeah, so I thought it was really well done, and I think it was a mighty project. Let's just go with that. Yeah.
Pendel.
Mighty project, definitely. I think this is one of the toughest pieces to do full stage, let alone this way, because it was written at a time before it was common parlance to talk about reincarnation or seeing people who had passed away, so forth, so on. So the whole essence of it is it's like this normal, almost sort of mundane town, but there's all this inner workings going on. So two things that would help, I think, is to use what they call the feather voice, which is as you are talking about different levels of ethereal material.
A baby.
There's the trifecta.
Patrick. There you go. You can let us follow the densities of meaning by the densities in your voice. And that probably sounds a little vague. I'd have to work with it. By the way, this would be a perfect piece for speech labs, which if our VP Ed will ever get on the stick, we'll actually have some. Another one is when you have invisible characters, you can lead them, like you were doing while looking at them, but you can actually lead them along. So, here they are, you can have your hand on their arm or something, so when you talk to them, in your mind, you actually see them there. And if you see them there, we'll see them there.
That's an interesting idea.
So,
Yeah.
and you have to be careful not to run into them.
Yeah.
The more you can make them concrete, the more we see them.
Yeah, that's great.
Reed.
I appreciated this setup. So your introduction, without that, this would have been hard to understand. So I appreciate the work that you did in creating the introduction. For me, I'm having a struggle here because I'm trying to understand what is an interpretive reading compared to now a one-act play or a one-person play, which this to me was borderlining that, because the reading would have been, I guess because of the props and your movements within the whole setting kind of made me feel like now this is more borderlining that play instead of the interpretive reading. So I don't know the answer there, but it's something to think about. But from my perspective, the setup was excellent. It helped make it happen. Without it, I wouldn't have got the context of the chairs and the grapes and etc. So.
Anything else? Well, Diana, what I'm hearing is that think about perhaps some more props, and in any case, get the sergeant at arms or help her to pre-position the props for you. Perhaps feather your voice for the ethereal, ghost-like effect, and lead an invisible character to help us visualize it. Get a great intro, and we can ponder what the difference between a play and interpretive reading is. A good discussion to have later, perhaps. So, overall, fantastic job.